Okay. Good evening and welcome to Inner West Council's second and final Future Focus Forum. My name is Annie Colford and I'm the Engagement Coordinator at Inner West Council. Before I hand over to General Manager Peter Gainsford to start the meeting, I'm just going to run through some housekeeping points. This online forum is anticipated to run to about 7:30 p.m. After the presentations, we'll be inviting you to submit written questions using the Q&A tool. You'll see the icon at the top of your screen. As attendees, you'll not be using your microphones or cameras in this meeting, and you won't be accessing the chat function. So we've allocated approximately 30 minutes for questions, and please note, all questions and comments will be moderated. We won't publish any that we don't consider to be appropriate, so please be mindful that all your comments will be on the public record. And a note about privacy. We are recording this meeting and it will be available in a few days' time on the Your Say Inner West website. If your comment is broadcast, your name will be visible to the live audience online, as well as future viewers of this recording. By providing your name on this online meeting, you consent to your name being visible too. So that's the end of the housekeeping notes. And I will now ask Peter Gainsford, Inner West Council's General Manager, to officially start the meeting with the Acknowledgement of Country.
Thanks, Annie. Good evening, everyone. And to start the meeting, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal and Wongal peoples of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of this land. I'd like to pay respect to their elders, both past, present, and acknowledge their young people who will be our future leaders. So to begin tonight's presentation, it's about the future of the Inner West. Screen shared shortly, and I'm going to cover that overview again, and then we'll talk about the next two strategic priorities following on from last week, where we covered sustainability and networked neighbourhoods. So every local government council has a community strategic plan, so it has a strategy. It answers the questions of where we are now, where do we want to be, how we're going to get there, and do we know where we've arrived. It contains long-term goals and strategies that measures progress to the vision, and there's many partners to deliver the community's vision. It's important to understand that it's not, this is the community strategic plan, and in some local government areas it could be ours, it could be other things required by other agencies to deliver the outcome for the community. Some areas, regional areas, it might be a school, or it might be some significant state government infrastructure as well. Out of this, then this guides the priorities that council has, and we deliver. The councillors, when they're elected next year, will put together what we've known as a delivery program, and that simply articulates the priorities for the next 4 years, which council can do. So, next slide. So this is the work that we did, and we're now just checking in on. This was really, really extensive back in 2016, 17, leading into 2018. So we surveyed. That's why we're not going back and doing it all again from them, because a lot of councils do quite a significant one, and then the next time they do it, they just check in. And ours was at 7,000 people over 18 months, and alignment with all the state and the district plans and the strategic objectives, and a lot of work with state government agencies. So, and it resulted, as I said, it went from that couple of year period, 18 months, and resulted in 5 high-level strategic directions, 23 outcomes, and 68 strategies. Next slide. So, as I touched on, it gets reviewed every new term of council, the CSP, and this is part of the process where we invite you as a community to provide input. Last week, we heard about experts about the first two strategic directions, and tonight we're going to have other experts from Council to give an overview of 2 of the 5 strategic directions. So previously we had an ecologically sustainable inner west and unique livable networked neighbourhoods. That was last week. But today we've got, first up is our strategic direction 3, which is creative communities and a strong economy. And then you'll hear about strategic direction 4, caring, happy and healthy communities. And I have 2 staff that are here tonight that are going to speak on both of these topics. One is Billy Kotsis, our economic development team leader. And we also have Simon Watts as our social and cultural planning manager. So I will now hand over for the first strategic direction, and I think it's Billy that's going first. So I'll hand over to Billy to present to you.
Okay, thank you, Peter, and thank you, everyone. I'm glad you're able to join us tonight, and hopefully I'll give you a bit of an overview of the projects that we've been working on, and also a little bit about our local economy. Can I have the next slide, please? So in terms of our local economy, we generate a fair bit of money. So you can probably see that between 22,000 businesses, give or take, because there's always a bit of debate about how many businesses we have. We generate $10.9 billion, which represents 1.74% of the state's economy. So it's not a bad little representation when you consider we're very big on small business. So you'll find as you go across the inner west, small business and to an extent medium business is probably what we're known for. So we're generating quite a fair bit of money when you look at the type of businesses we have. On that slide, you can also see some of our top industries. So you've got professional services, healthcare and social is actually quite big. It employs a lot of people and there's a lot of people engaged with it. Manufacturing, and we're very well known for our manufacturing. So of course, Marrickville is probably the heartland, and it's for people who might be new to the inner west, you're probably thinking, okay, manufacturing. There's a lot of history. So if you ever walk through some of those back areas there of Marrickville, around the Sydenham sort of catchment, and also in Dulwich Hill, you're going to see a lot of old buildings. You're going to see a lot of trucks coming through. It's very, very exciting, and we're quite lucky. We're protecting those industrial lands, and they generate a fair bit of income, fair few jobs, and it's a very important industry for us. And it gets the inner west known, or some of these businesses are known across Australia and also through Asia. So it's actually quite good. Construction, that's kind of standard across most local government areas. Retail, of course, and creative industries. And we're very proud. I know Simon's going to talk a little bit about this. So we're very, very proud in the inner west about the creative industries we have. And the creative industries can be a mixed bag of different industries that might connect into manufacturing and might connect into performance, arts, and so forth. But overall, as a collective, creatives in the inner west, it really puts us on the map. Melbourne obviously talks up how good they are. We genuinely believe that the inner west is probably the hub. And Simon could correct me if I'm wrong, but it really is a hub for local creatives. And I know Tamara Winnikoff's online as well too. She probably tested that creatives are very important to the identity and also to what we do in the inner west. So I'm happy to always talk about that. Challenges. So our local economy. So we talked about 10.9 billion. It's quite a good figure, but we've had a lot of challenges, just like most local government areas. The impacts, were quite substantial, obviously. We've switched to a recovery phase, and we're learning to live with the virus. For us, a lot of hospitality businesses, learning to live with the virus obviously means that how do we make better use of public space? How do we ensure that square meterage is used properly? Can we use outdoor areas? So these are things that nice little challenges that are going to be good for us as a council, but also our partners across the business community and also the chambers. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the creative industries and some of the services. I mentioned a person that we've been dealing with, Tamara. So thank you for all your input into what is the Inner West Creative Network. We realised, and Simon's team and stuff also realised a while back, it's very important to protect our creatives and see what we can do to work with creative industries. So we felt it's an opportune time to create a bit of a chamber or an association that represents creatives and use that as an opportunity to represent the local industries, to lobby all tiers of government, provide training, provide websites, do a lot to represent the local creative industry. So we're very happy to have supported that, and that came to fruition just a few months ago. And there's still a bit of work to do, but we're happy to see that. Um, Another element of creatives or creative industries, and also helps with our local identity. We worked a fair bit, economic development works a fair bit with the events team, and that results in a whole range of activations. And activations, it's not just about, here's an event, fantastic, happy days. It's something different. So we need activations to be creative, to be fun, involve businesses, involve local artists. And that's what council's worked on this year through the events team and supported by some of Simon's staff, some of my staff as well too. And that's resulted in some excellent projects. You've got Inner West Fest, you've got Celebrate South King, which was actually one of the best projects I've been involved with. That was South King is an area that if you walk up and down South King, it's very diverse, it's eclectic, it's a lot of fun. But a lot of the business owners there will tell you they're struggling, and this is before the lockdown. So we teamed up with them, and you can see one of the shops there, one of the outcomes. So we teamed up with all the businesses along South King in Newtown, and we came up with it's listed as 90 activations, but it's probably more 70. So 70 odd activations spread over a few days. And the end goal was to hold a big activation and a celebration in Peace Reserve, but unfortunately that got rained out. And of all the projects that I've been involved with this council, this is the one that had the most feedback, outcomes, happy faces, smiling faces. And the weather was really bad, and it was just in that period leading into the lockdown. But people came out, people supported it, and from that we've seen South King come together. It's a really good outcome for us, and that's leading to the re-establishment of a local chamber, which is going to represent Newtown and Emil. So it's a project that I was very happy with. So next slide, please. So our local community is thriving, and this is something, well, a local business community is thriving. This is something we really want to achieve, and we've been working towards. And regardless of the headaches and hassles businesses have got, we're all working towards that. So we really want our inner west to be a hub for economic and employment growth. When we look at employment, it's very interesting. We've got offhand, it's around about 80,000 jobs, give or take. I have to double check that. But we find 80% of, before COVID, 80% of people would leave the LGA on any given day to go to work, which, I mean, that's fine, but it'd be great to be able to work with chambers and industries to try and keep a lot more people working and living in the LGA. So that's a bit of a goal for us. And COVID has kind of helped in a lot of sense, a lot of areas where people are working from home. But it'd be great to see a lot more locals filling local jobs. So it's always quite interesting for us. We are looking at some employment expos, and we are working with some of our industry partners to see how we can work and support employment growth moving forward. Supporting diversity in business growth. So when we talk about diversity, it could be a range of things. So we run, Women in Business program. We're looking at, and we're starting to discuss ways we can look at improving some of the businesses for accessible elements. A lot of businesses aren't necessarily at a level where they're generating a lot of people in wheelchairs or access. So it's something that we're really going to focus on in 2022. And see how we can, look at other areas that we haven't really tapped into. I mentioned there's women in business. We're looking at youth. We're working towards, we've got a draft Aboriginal economic development plan. So we really want to invest heavily, well, as well as we can, with local Indigenous businesses. And there's a lot of really, really good ones. And we've been working towards developing a strategy to look at a vision for the next 5-10 years. Obviously, promoting the inner west is a great place to live, work, visit, and invest in. Yes, it's something that we've been doing through our wonderful comms department. So they work. They're probably sick and tired of getting phone calls and emails from me. But we work really well to promote all of the precincts. So as part of our post lockdown recovery, we've put a fair bit of money into supporting each precinct. There's a visitor experience. People coming in really need to enjoy and really absorb what's available in each precinct. So we've put a bit of marketing and support with our comms team through Time Out, through Concrete Playground, through our social media posts, and we've taken a lot of pictures and videos and those things with a lot of the businesses. We're very proud of the Inner West, and we're very proud of the businesses we have. So it's such an easy sell, and it's something we love doing. So we'll definitely continue that. Um, and supporting social and environmentally responsible businesses and services, that's something that some of the other departments, as well as economic development, do support and do work in with, and we're very happy to see some outcomes with solar, for example, in various workshops, and that'll continue in the future. Next slide, please. So our business recovery, excuse me, it talked about some of the hardships that the businesses face, and it talked about some of the things that we're doing. Now, we realised early that some of the businesses, some of the commercial property owners may struggle with getting their rates paid on time. So early on in the piece, we provided deferral options or a form for commercial property owners, and the idea was that they could pass that on to some of their tenants. So we think that that worked okay. Simon and his team led a whole range of grants initiatives for COVID relief for the arts industry, and there was a figure there of around about $300,000. So it was a really good outcome, and that was towards the end of 2020 to support local artists. We also established last year, and it was chaired by the previous mayor, Darcy Burns. So it was the Inner West Economic Recovery Task Force, and that brought in a range of people through an expression of interest, a range of experts across different industry fields, and we met over a period of about 4 or 5 months last year, and we also had a meeting this year. And we developed, the group rather, developed 39 recommendations that have gone up to council. And this is, it's quite unique. It's actually, this is something we would not have envisaged. 39 recommendations. How do we help businesses? What can we look at? And it was something that's been well accepted by the group, by the community, as we try and implement all of, or if not all of, those 39 recommendations. So we've already gotten halfway through them, and we're going to continue that over the next year or two. And hopefully we'll be able to implement all of those 39 recommendations, and they are available through a report. You can also reach out to me if you do want a copy or a bit more information about that. We've also, to try and get to a point where we've got various visions for our local economy, we do have some strategic plans, and that's very important. Council has a lot of really good plans. There's a lot of master plans in place, but there's two there that are quite important to the work we do. So we adopted a nighttime economy action plan last year, so it gives us a bit of a baseline to do a bit more with the local economy. And at the moment you've got a 24-hour commissioner that the state's appointed. We're part of a regional nighttime economy committee, and we link in with our neighbours such as the City of Sydney to see what we can do, or try and learn some best practice models to try and support local economy, local nighttime economy initiatives. There's a lot of opportunities for growth, and it is an area that over time can potentially grow. We don't necessarily have a massive nighttime economy, and Sydney isn't exactly known as a European style nighttime economy, but there's opportunities, and that's what we're going to be looking at and try and work with our business partners to get to a particular level where the economy is a little bit more vibrant at night time. Not to say it's not vibrant, but there's always room to try and improve a little bit. We've got our a draft economic development strategic plan, and that was developed with a fair bit of public or business consultation. This is hopefully going to go up to council in April next year, and it's going to be our guiding light for the next 3 or 4 years. And if you're a business and you're on tonight and you want to know a little bit more about what we're calling the EDSP, I'd love to hear from you. And even if you don't want to talk about strategic plans, it's actually really good for me to talk to as many businesses as possible. And if it's not me, there's also another 2 members in the economic development team. We love engaging with you. But this economic development plan is very important for us. It's that roadmap forward, and obviously taking into consideration a lot of the hurdles the economy's had over the last couple of years, and also keeping in mind that before we had the COVID situation, their economy was heading towards a downturn. There was a retail recession. So all of those things are factored into with this plan. Next slide, please. So ongoing initiatives. There's a lot of initiatives, but I'm trying to probably condense it to a few points, and hopefully this will do it justice. Because again, just putting it out there, we've got a good team there of 3, and there's been a lot of work that's been undertaken in recent years. At the moment, we are, as a council, working on outdoor dining and live music performance projects, and this one kind of started in recent weeks. So we're looking at aside from footpath dining, we're looking at roadway dining. So looking at businesses that are making applications to use part of, or some car parking spots, so roadways, and looking at other opportunities. And again, this links into the public health order, providing a bit more outdoor space and spaces for businesses to be able to operate. The whole element of living with COVID, we don't know what's around the corner. We don't know if we're going to have issues down the track. So it's great to be able to use as much public space as possible, and that's been well received so far. There are no fees associated with this project. And I was in Darley last night. They were installing some concrete barriers, and a couple of businesses were talking to me, and they're like, "Oh, we're very interested, but we don't want to pay for fees." The best thing about our council with outdoor dining, there are no fees. So it's another one of the things we do to support local businesses. Workshops, we've got some local procurement workshop. There's one actually happening tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. So again, if you're a business, just and you've not heard about it, please drop me a line or ask. We really want to see more businesses involved in registering for vendor panel, to try and provide ways and methods for businesses to seek local opportunities for procurement. We work a lot with partners to run workshops. ATO is my #1 kind of partner. We probably run about 10 to 12 workshops per year, so they're quite good. A bit dry, but there's a lot of great information, and we love supporting that. Women in Business and also Women Mentoring Program, which Bernadette self runs. This has been fantastic. It's a great initiative, and very proud of the staff member who's been running this, and also the people involved with Women in Business. And then we run a whole range of other workshops which might be of assistance to businesses and those thinking about getting into business. Business chambers, we work a lot. I counted recently how many business chambers, liquor records, business associations. There's about 19 active ones. The other day I was in Petersham looking at a potential laneway activation, and a really nice local architect talked to me about how can we get a local Petersham chamber going. So we love dealing with chambers and representative bodies like that. We run a lot of promotions. We provide support. They do a lot of activations in their areas and comms and promotions and so forth. It's a very good partnership, and hopefully that'll continue to go from strength to strength over the next few years. Next slide, please. So we talked about the Economic Development Strategic Plan. Yes, that is coming up. That should be in front of council by about April, and it's, as I mentioned, it's something that we're very happy to get to council. Will be great for us. And I mentioned the 39 recommendations for the Inner West Recovery Task Force. There's still a bit of work to do, and we'll keep chugging along and letting the public know about those recommendations, how they're going. Next slide, please. So I did talk about employment and just trying to support local job creation. Council has been quite good with industrial employment land. So there's something called an EARLS, and it's employment retail land study, and it's looking at those lands and those areas that we're trying to protect when it comes to manufacturing, especially. and that was put together by the Strategic Planning Unit. For us, I did mention the local employment and procurement stuff, so I'm obviously going to harp on about that. We do want to work towards more employment opportunity or more employment strategies moving forward, and that's going to be one of the parts of our economic development plan next year. And developing access options for business. Again, I kind of mentioned that. It is an area. Diversity is something we really need to look at. I didn't mention the GLBTQI element. Diversity is something that is quite important to us, and we really want to be working with other areas that we really haven't explored as much as we could have. And obviously the Inner West is a hub for a whole range of diversity. So, we're just going to continue to work and harness with what we've got. Next slide, please. So trying to get, I realise I've probably taken a bit of time, so I'll try and get to the finish line with the economic development stuff. Couple of parts when it comes to urban hubs and main streets. I'm a big fan, and there's a few people in council and the public that are a big fan of laneways and car parks and that sort of thing. And we want to use that kind of space. We want to try and look at what's happened at the City of Sydney, what's happening in Melbourne, what's happening in London, and look at our laneways as an opportunity to do something different. So we've got a few on our list at the moment. We're exploring options, and hopefully in the short to medium term, you're going to see a few little activations. Recently, Marrickville Lane came on our radar. Craig from Lazy Bones and Alex from Lazy Bone have been in touch with us. How do we do things with laneways? So we're working together. We're trying to do something with that little laneway, and it should, we should have some sort of an activation in place for March, and there'll be a few more like that moving forward. I think I might have used the word master plan. Or strategic plans. Council has a few master plans they're looking at for some of the urban centres, so it's really important you look out for that. That's through the Strategic Planning Unit. Economic Development does contribute, but we're not the lead. So look out for Dulwich Hill, look out for Camperdown, look out for Parramatta Road Corridor. I'm sure there's a couple more out there as well too that they're working on. It's very important that when it goes out to public, that you think about contributing and give us your feedback. There's what we can do over the next 10, 20, 30 years can really be shaped with what your feedback and also your experiences are as well too. Next slide, please. And just finishing up in terms of wrapping up what economic development does, especially around the main streets and hubs, where I sit and what I like to see. We want to see higher footfall. We want to see more people coming in to our precincts. We don't want people jumping on a train. I was on a call earlier today and someone was talking about, I go from Hurstville to the city to have a bit of fun. Inner West it's got everything. And trying to keep people here and enjoying your local experiences, coming out to your urban centres and appreciating not just the shopping, but what's available day and night time, what's available for families, what's available for people of all different types and backgrounds. So that's something that we're very happy to see. And as we move forward, we're going to continue to promote that kind of footfall coming into our local areas. And that then leads into a lot of local campaigns. So enjoy and eat, enjoy, play, work in our local government area. So I think that probably wraps up what I had to say in terms of economic development. Please, any questions, if you didn't have any questions at the end, if you do want to speak to me, and if you're in business especially, I'd love to play, work in our local government area. So I think that probably wraps up what I had to say in terms of economic development. Please, any questions, or if you didn't have any questions at the end, but you do want to speak to me, and if you're a business especially, I'd love to chat. Thanks.
That's great, Billy. Thank you very much for that, and thanks for those of you starting to put some questions through the Q&A. We'll do that. We'll be doing that at 7 o'clock. But if you feel free, as the presentation goes, to still fill that box out. Our next speaker is Simon Watts, our Social and Cultural Planning Manager, and he's going to be talking about, again, strategic direction 3, creative communities and a strong economy. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you very much, Peter, and good evening, colleagues, friends. Can I have the first slide, please, Quinn? Thank you. So we'll just finish on this creative communities and strong economy. Next slide, please, Quinn. So as Billy said, the local arts and culture economy in the inner west is enormous, $1.6 billion a year, 6,500 jobs. And in terms of this outcome, creativity and culture are valued and celebrated. These are some of the areas that you told us were important to you about creativity and culture when we were engaging on the new cultural strategy. So obviously a sense of place, what is it that makes the inner west? Values like inclusiveness, grassroots, entrepreneurship, leadership on social justice and the environment. And the fact that the inner west is the creative engine of Sydney, so enormous cultural production, live music and performance, and a variety of sizes of sectors. Recent research demonstrates that Marrickville's got the densest arts and culture sector in Australia, in fact, and certainly we're above the Sydney region in terms of densification. So even though this sector has taken a hit through the COVID era, there's still enormous strength in it. I think the most important thing perhaps to say about creativity and culture is that really nothing creates well-being like cultural enlivenment. So social connection, community cohesion, and the possibility of us living active and rich lives all come from our cultural heritage and our ongoing cultural participation. Next slide, please, Quinn. So we spoke to folk about the cultural strategy over an 18-month period, and COVID slowed us down, but we're ready to take the cultural strategy to the new council. Critically, the strategy helps us to engage new challenges, including gentrification and densification, to use another word that talks about new apartment towers replacing housing that was perhaps single story. A concern that there might be a loss of vibrancy or soul, certainly providing affordable spaces for art, culture and making. And those of you who are familiar with this sector know that a lot of the art and culture making in this sector has traditionally taken place in post-industrial spaces, in former factories, which were cheap to rent and provided the right scale of space, dirty, noisy, those sorts of elements that manufacturing in arts and culture needs. So the very success that people enjoyed in those is threatened by the densification and the growing population. So there's some big issues to be balanced there and to be worked with. In the face of incoming people leaving the area, the social fabric and the economy, and keeping those strong is a real focus for the cultural strategy. But above all, nurturing what is distinctly inner west. So the focus areas for the strategy, noting that it's a 4-year strategy, principally Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures at the centre. And this is very important to us. So the inner west population is 200,000, Aboriginal people about 2,300 of that 200,000. So a small but significant number, and quite distinct traditional cultures or communities of Aboriginal people across the city. We're doing some pretty exciting work in this space. Council will create 3 Aboriginal survival memorials, beginning with one in Yeo Park in the next year in 2022. And these aim to celebrate, but also to bring the opportunity for everyone to understand more of what country is and to understand more of the relationship to language and culture that country offers. So there's some pretty exciting work in that space. There's a strong link to the Reconciliation Action Plan in the cultural strategy. I'll talk more about that. Second one is culture is for everyone. So 65,000 people speak a language other than English at home every night out of a population of 200,000 in the inner west. That's a lot. And one of the things that we want from the cultural strategy is to see more diversity reflected. We want to create opportunities for artists from diverse backgrounds to get into employment in arts and culture. We want there to be mentoring for those folk to help grow their businesses and to make a go of arts and culture careers. We want there to be more reflection of the diversity that we find in every street in what council offers in terms of its edge programming or in terms of its events. So basically that no one should be excluded from culture. We want to see more children and young people included in that and more women. Love Inner West Day and Night is the third focus area, and this is involves some of the things Billy's touched on. Live music and performance obviously need reinvigoration after COVID, but we also want to, explore what the role of culture is in main street activation. So places like Marrickville Road in Marrickville are really coming on, and we see a future for that looks like Enmore Road, Enmore. And we're working closely with City of Sydney on King Street. Northern Street Leichhardt is another area. So really a really strong focus on giving people the incentive that culture provides to get out and enjoy the Inner West in a cultural sense. We also want to explore the role of culture in our growing places, and our colleague Amanda Buckland is doing work at the moment on a new public art policy for the city, and so people will be aware that when large developments occur, be they commercial or residential, council will negotiate the inclusion of public art in that development, and people may be familiar with the stunning public art that's gone into the new expansion of Marrickville Metro. As an example, council brokered those artists to work with AMP Capital. So this is a significant area for us to expand our work in and our thinking in public art. We have a lot of public art, pieces of public art, and we want to make sure that that's matched with new enlivenment around what art does in creating new places. We also want to imagine our future together. So we've got a proud history of activism in the Inner West. Our research demonstrates that the benchmark for people being politically active in Australia is about 8%, 9% of people. In the Inner West, it's closer to 40%, around 38%. So we want to make sure that, the issues of social justice and equity, diversity, anti-racism, inclusion, all of those issues can be best explored, we think, through culture and art. So that's a run through of the cultural strategy and what we expect that to help deliver over the next period, the next council term. The next slide, please, Quinn. So we already spoke about Aboriginal people at the centre as a major theme in the cultural strategy. And I'll point to the fish trap art that's illustrated there. So council has recently won an award for that art on the Greenway. That is one of those pieces. So council has a policy position to stand with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities for recognition, equality and self-determination. And we've created our first reconciliation action plan with 4 focus areas of relationships, respect, opportunities and governance. With relationships, we want there to be new engagement with Aboriginal people in creating the future city, and that includes wayfinding and naming. So council's developed a new naming policy, and as part of that, a list of Aboriginal names suitable for streets, infrastructure and places has been created. So people can expect there to be more use of Aboriginal names, in addition, obviously, to our renaming of wards with Aboriginal names. We want to work on the respect issue alongside Aboriginal people. Obviously, there's broad political activism, but there's also elements of how Aboriginal people are supported to have the opportunity to create cultural tours or to explain the cultural significance of country and landscape. Alongside that, we want to do new work on extant Aboriginal archaeology in the Inner West. Some of that work's being done at the moment in Callan Park, and we want to expand that. We want to make sure that there are economic development opportunities for Aboriginal people. So council has adopted a a pro-Aboriginal procurement approach, and Billy has described that Aboriginal economic development work that he has led. We want there to be Aboriginal tours and Aboriginal traineeships in council. Council's creating a number of new Aboriginal traineeship positions. We also want there to be governance. So we've got a strong Aboriginal advisory committee as part of council's local democracy group, and we want to make sure that the voice and perspective of those committee members that represent other Aboriginal people, of course, are included more strongly in council's governance of its policy development and project development. The next slide, please, Quinn. Yes, I spoke about the Aboriginal Survival Memorial. So the first site, as I mentioned, is in Yeo Park, the second in Kendrick Park down at Tempe, and the third on the water at by the water opposite Barangaroo at East Balmain. So council's at the moment preparing an expression of interest process to identify the artists for those memorials. So quite significant work over a number of years. We have also undertaken in the last few years quite detailed analysis of the landscape, the flora and fauna at the time of colonisation, and that research has been quite useful to us. For example, in our urban forest strategy, where we're replacing, in some cases, replacing introduced species of trees with trees that would have been indigenous to the particular location in parks and also in streets. Thanks, Quinn. So this is strategic direction for caring, happy, healthy communities. Next slide, please, Quinn. So outcome 4.3, the community is healthy and people have a sense of well-being. So critical to council's approach over the next period is this simple idea that if people participate in their communities, if they get up off the couch and go out into the world, build new relationships, then they increase their own stock of social capital and well-being. And through doing that, they create inclusion in their communities. It's a very simple idea. And it's at the heart of a lot of our work in this community area. So I've already spoken extensively about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The Inner West in this last year adopted a gender equity strategy, and people will know that violence against women and children is the #1 social problem in Australia. And council wants to take more of a leadership role in that area of reducing harassment and violence in all its forms. So that strategy was adopted and is rolling out. We have a significant commitment to refugees and asylum seekers. We maintain an asylum seeker centre in Callan Park. We've launched in recent years and continue to promote a very successful Racism Not Welcome campaign that's been largely frequently taken up by other councils around Sydney and Australia. So we're very active in this space. During the COVID era, we supported a number of, over 2 years, we provided 2 tranches of $250,000 to community organisations for COVID relief assistance, and significant amounts of that money went to Addison Road Community Centre. And I'm very pleased to say that through that period, people, students, international students, asylum seekers, refugees who didn't necessarily have access to any other support were really supported by food packages, both by council and corporates, and really by an army of Inner West volunteers who packaged food and delivered food to people. So really very tangible assistance to folk who didn't have a lot of other resources during the COVID era. Council has a significant commitment to LGBTIQ people, and folk may know that the Newtown Neighbourhood Centre will move to Council's former Tom Foster Centre in St Peters in the coming year, and Council has a commitment to create a new Pride Centre at the Newtown Town Hall. And that's a pretty exciting initiative as we lead into World Pride events in 2023, which are being hosted in Sydney. So we anticipate that day new centre will be open by that time. Mentioning community centres, we have a significant commitment to re-enlivening our community centres. I mentioned that Newtown was moving to, community centre was moving to Tom Foster. Council has re-auspiced Summer Hill Community Centre. I note that on their own action, Roselle Neighbourhood Centre is moving to new premise, and Council has its own staffed community facility. Safe standards in recent, in the last week in New South Wales, and Council's got a huge new commitment to safety for children and young people, and a tangible expression of that will be developing a new child and young person strategy in this coming year, 2022. Thanks, Quinn. Outcome 4.4, people have access to the services and facilities they need at all stages of life. So of the 200,000 people in the Inner West, currently 1/3 of those folk are over 50, and that will grow to 25% by 2026, so in a short period of time. So more than 50,000 people will be over 50. And Council has, over the last 18 months, developed a healthy ageing strategy to guide participation and in that area. And these are some of the key concepts from that strategy. So I've already mentioned participation, creating inclusion, and helping people to cohere as a community is incredibly important, but so too is resilience. And I think that one of the astounding things over the period 2019, 2021 is just the sequence of shocks that we've experienced. You know, we started that period with extensive bushfires across Australia and New South Wales, followed by flooding, followed, of course, by years of the pandemic, and in the midst of that, more extensive flooding. And now, of course, we're heading into a new wet summer. And I think that one of the things that older people were saying to us is, you know, how are we to understand this, changed world, and what's important to us, you know? And one of the things that we know is that if people can safely get out the front door onto a footpath, and the Inner West has an extensive network of footpaths, one of the best in Sydney, and they can safely walk up the street, and they can visit their neighbours, or they can go to the bus stop, they can walk around the block. We know that that's incredibly important, that sense of being in control of at least your local place, to their sense of resilience, to their capacity to carry on when times are tough. And we think that these elements all contribute to well-being. And if people have got good well-being, well, they live longer. So that's at the, those ideas are at the heart of our healthy ageing strategy. Thanks, Quinn. So the strategy itself, 6 keys to well-being. Firstly, staying active. So not just opportunities to participate, information about opportunities to participate, not just footpaths and good infrastructure, but also things that are close to people. And in this area, Council has a relationship agreement with school education. And folk may know that there's a baby boom in the Inner West, and every school in the Inner West is being upgraded in the next 10 years. And Council already does, but intends to do more co-investment with those schools, so that there's more of an opportunity for intergenerational participation in schools, with schools. So more involvement of older folk in teaching and learning numeracy or literacy, but also there being, you know, the opportunity to use recreational facilities at schools, or even art and culture facilities. Getting around staying connected, well, this is a real big challenge, and people know that as you get older, it's more and more difficult to get up onto buses, and do they really come? Do they take you where you want to go? And so we know that there's a demand for more point-to-point transport. Council's got a transport strategy that's looking at some of these areas, and we've done a review of our own transport offering, and so we know how important this is to people. Council advocacy has seen both Stanmore and Petersham stations upgraded with new lifts. We expect that Tempe will follow, although that hasn't been announced. So we've done a lot in that space, both through advocacy and through our own work, and more will follow. We know that there's an epidemic of poverty and homelessness or housing insecurity among old people, particularly women. And, we're talking with older people about a generation who didn't have superannuation or very much super. So there's a real issue with housing affordability and real poverty among that group that we want to address. We know that safety and the perception of safety is important. So too is infrastructure for getting people out. We know people like to continue to learn and to share knowledge. And we're working extensively, or we will work extensively with the local health district. So Inner West is 1/3 of the Sydney local health district population of 600,000. So we're a significant player in policy terms with them. Thanks, Quinn. I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, Peter.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Simon. And thank you for your questions. I said encourage you to put those in. If you can see the Q&A button, please add them in. We've got 12 questions, so thank you for those that have put them in. And if you want to put any more in, I'll go from the top and put these questions. Some are statements, some are questions. So thank you. The first one is from Jordan Daly. And is there any way to encourage ongoing activations? For instance, did Celebrate South King help local businesses improve their turnover on a long-term basis, or only for the duration of the events? So I'll send that one to Billy.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Jordan, great question. And we were looking to test this to see how what kind of knock-on effect we're going to have. Unfortunately, this was all held during June, and within a few days we were all in lockdown, so it was hard to measure. But in a small space, because we've got mechanisms in place where we can actually measure spend. So there's something called Spend Map we can look at, and we'll deal with feedback from businesses and so forth. So in those days, in that particular period, there was a bump, and our aim was to see it continue for the whole of the winter period and into spring, and then we were going to do some comms, so that was already lined up. So hard to measure, but we would like to do a lot more activations. Celebrate South King keeps coming up again and again, and we've got in place, trying to work with some chambers to see what we can do to continue to support activations. Because I think if you get a lot of these businesses involved with activations, they use their social media, we use our social media, it does lead to a lot more interest. Might not be that spend for that particular day or that weekend, but the other beautiful thing about these kind of projects is you get people having some sort of awareness of particular businesses and that kind of thing in particular precincts. So they might not go that particular weekend or that day, but they'll go the following month or a couple of weeks later. So there's an awareness. So in short, it's hard to measure because of COVID, but we know that we would have had a significant medium to long-term benefit with those projects.
Thanks for that, Billy. The next question's from Anonymous, and there's Anonymous attendee. And look, if your name comes up when you're registered, it'd be great if you could put your name on. Just type it in the chat box as well, if it's not clear on what your name is as registered. But I'll read it out. Oh, sorry, I just had a little blackout there. My apologies. I'll read it out. Safe separated bike lanes running along retail corridors have been shown to benefit local business, much more than parking. Why are we seeing free parking for cars instead of bike infrastructure to move more people to the shops and give our local businesses the best chance for COVID recovery? Look, I might answer that one. Council resolved a few weeks ago as part of its economic recovery program for businesses to provide some free parking for businesses where there's metered parking. I don't think it'll solve the long-term parking problem. Parking meters do create that turnover in the high streets. We did some community engagement of the businesses They said they would like that to carry through to the end of the year, so that's in place to the end of December. So that's sort of that as part of a business recovery. In the long term, council agreed we have a integrated transport plan. That obviously there's a hierarchy. We do want to encourage walking, all active transport, and that is bike lanes. But as you're aware, it takes a while to, and sometimes it can be controversial. So it takes council, there's an education role that council needs to do, and there's also a leadership role that we do. We are committed to improving our bike network throughout the LGA. There is work to do. There's no doubt about that. So I think that we'll continue to do that. I encourage those, if there's anyone's on public space and for parking, if you didn't see, have a look at last week's chat. There was and last week's presentation. It's online, and Annie's going to share that through the chat box. And if you go on and you have a look at last week's presentation, it talks about our integrated planning strategies and hierarchy. So the next question after that was, again, I'm so pleased to see public space given to people through outdoor dining on footpaths and car parks. But why aren't safe pop-up bike lanes and better bike parking being put in so people can travel to high streets on bikes and leave cars at home, and even make more space in our town centres? We've got to do and I'll answer this one again, we've got to do a whole heap of public domain planning. We've got to develop master plans for areas. We'll integrate as much we can from the integrate transport and alternate active transport measures. We want great footpaths. We want opportunities for people to cycle as well. So that'll be in our future planning. The pop-up dining, again, was economic recovery to do something immediately. Some of the other stuff in terms of dedicated bike lanes takes a lot longer to plan. So it was a response. It's part of our COVID recovery over this summer. The alternate transport and pop-up bike lanes and parking, will work on that in the longer term. So another one from anonymous, riding a bike for transport to employment is just about the cheapest possible mode, but the roads are dedicated cars. Not having to buy a car and park it can save thousands of dollars each year. Please improve the biking infrastructure. So all I encourage you, have a look at next week's anonymous attendee. Your point is making. You can contribute by responding to the community strategic plan, community feedback, and you get the opportunity through next year's budget process that we put out on exhibition to say, hey, we'd like to see a greater shift into that. We are through our bike plans, our work with Transport for New South Wales, we try and attract as much funding as we can as well for regional bike routes through the area. So, thank you for anonymous. Leanne Loki, glad to see outdoor dining and performance initiative by Inner West Council. So needed, and will make public space and streets so vibrant. As Billy alluded to, we've just done, so thank you, more of a comment. Billy alluded to, we've just put in a few places we've done outside the Palace Cinema, so Moretti on Norton Street. We've also done some footpaths, some dining spaces that have been put in up at the end of Marrickville Road in Dulwich Hill, and they're coming with nice decorative artwork to try and make it is temporary, but it's try and make it as best as we can possibly can. So we'll try and share that through our social media to promote people to go to these areas. I think it's important that people go local and enjoy the Inner West is such a vibrant area. So if we can create a bit of a positivity to going to those spaces, I think it'd be a good thing over summer. So thank you, Leanne. Another one from JFM. Good presentation on businesses. It's great to see to have dining and night activities for adults. We are planning. What are we planning that will boost business activities for families and kids, like street festivals, closed streets for walking, biking, and 30-kilometre zones. I am going to go to Billy first on that question of what we're doing for creating activities for families.
Thanks, Peter. So that again, another really good question, and it's something that's going to be at the front and centre of a lot of the master plans moving forward, and that's just council speak. Look, there's a lot we need to do in terms of getting more families in, so we have been talking about that. So whether it's some little pop-up parks, so we're looking at investing in a few of those, making it as kids friendly as possible. So we're looking at perhaps some alterations or changes of some of the streetscape to make it a bit more inviting and user friendly for family members. So I completely recognise that it's all about local experience, not just about spending. So you make a really, really good point in terms of the families and bringing them in. So it's not just families going to parks, but they're coming into our urban centres. We've got some urban centre planning coming up. So through our strategic planning group, and it is on there. I'd love to continue that conversation with you to let you know some of the other things we are doing. In the next 3 to 4 months, there's going to be a few more announcements and plans. So if it's possible to take that or get some, I guess a contact, I'd be happy to give you a bit more information about what's planned through councils. In terms of just with the businesses and so forth, with our just nothing that I wanted to throw in there. Traditionally, we've done really big festivals, and some of those are going to continue, some of those flagship festivals. But what we've realised is if we do some smaller activations, so Inner West Fest, the Edge, programs like that, Celebrate South King, it brings in the families and looking at doing things in pocket parks or smaller parts. We try and target as many of the families, not just your average punter, but families as well to come in. And by spreading the love, we do it across all of those precincts. So changing that focus as well too, so you're not just getting one day of 100,000 people turning up. You've actually got a few weeks of various activities to bring people into a centre. So that's probably all I can probably say from my end. If Peter wants to contribute more on that.
No, that's fine. We'll try and create as many activities for all families to get out. It is a conscious decision. It's not all about. Whilst we're trying to do an economic recovery, we do want to create some great space for families to do activities, and we'll try and do that through our events program and through economic development. So, thank you for that. The next question is from Anna Harvey. There's a very good active transport theme happening today in today's session. Electric bikes and electric trikes can be mobility devices and help the elderly and others access our neighbourhoods and high streets. They also make transport accessible for young people who can't drive a car by themselves. Given this, why is our street space so dominated by cars? Please include better bike infrastructure. So I'll just give you a little bit. Annie put in the chat that we'll be developing our new cycling strategy starting at the beginning of 2022. So sign up to the Your Say Inner West. This is a plug for us, but it's important. If you want to know what's going on, you want to know about these plans, you've given your time up today, which is fantastic. Sign up to the Your Say Inner West newsletter at yoursay.innerwest.nsw.gov.au and find out when it starts and get involved as soon as we start. So I think that'll be a great thing, and then you can do that. But I think there's a recurring theme that we need to shift the dial on the car domination and create a place for people that can ride and walk. And you won't get any argument from councillors on creating better infrastructure for people to get around in other modes of transport. Liz Loxley says, will council be using an Aboriginal name, e.g. Gulay Yari, for the river known as Cook's River? I might. Simon, can you answer that one?
Well, I can say that, to my knowledge, it's never been raised with the Aboriginal Advisory Committee, but I think it's an interesting conversation. Probably co-naming would be likely. I'm not sure exactly who actually names rivers. I think that they're probably beyond our scope, but certainly it's something we can talk about, Peter.
Thank you, Simon. The next question is from Heather Davies. So Marrickville was voted the 10th coolest place in the world to live. And part of its charm and vibrancy comes from old houses, shops and streetscapes. And you see people come here for the cafes, the bars and the music venues. Sadly, the streetscape's changing, particularly on Illawarra Road. Proposals for 6-storey black or white boxes is destroying the vibrancy and killing the soul of Marrickville. Many of the shops under new developments are empty. Some, such as under the Revolution apartments, have been empty for years, which depresses the area. So the mixed use of developments are not working well. Some areas are occupied by banks, employment agents, hearing centre, which take away the vibrancy from the traditional landscape. What will council do to protect what is left of the historical, charming, vibrant streetscape character valued by many in the Marrickville town centre? I suppose that's all a part of council's future planning for the area. Our planning controls have allowed to of encouraging with lots of these developments under ground floor retail activity. And they don't always get taken up, as you've said, in certain particular areas. I might throw to Billy to talk about what we're doing through shopping centres and what we can do, what we're trying to do to encourage activation in any shop fronts or anything like that. Billy, can you add to any of the things we're doing about vacancies?
Yeah, a couple of things, and I'm really glad that's been raised. That's it's a pain for me, a bit like parking issues. So with a lot of the shop fronts that you come across that are empty, some of them are they're just, you've probably noticed, they're just allowed to be. The landlord just doesn't care, and and unfortunately they remain empty. Some they're having trouble obviously getting tenants in there. With the ones that you alluded to, Revolution Apartments, yes, you're correct. There's a couple of shop fronts there that have been empty for quite a while, and it is quite disappointing. All we try and do is try and encourage and get the word out as much as possible to try and get tenants in there. There was a project a while back called Renew, where we were not giving away, doesn't sound right because it's not our properties, but trying to get artists and temporary pop-ups into some of the shops. It didn't work as well as it could have. What we're looking to do in December, so we're having some discussions for next month. We want to do a bit of a survey just to sort of see what sort of empties are out there and why they're remaining empty. It is something that is challenging. We can't force a lot of these we can't force the businesses or the property owner rather to tenant it, but we're looking, if there's ways of encouraging them to get them tenanted, or even pop-ups or temporary usages would be fantastic. Because I agree with you, they are unfortunately a bit of an eyesore. You walk through most of Illawarra Road's fantastic, and then you come across some empties. So it's part of a strategy there, and we're going to build that into the economic development strategy as well too. There's no easy fix, and especially because we don't own those properties, but we can have those conversations, and I will be looking at with some colleagues where we're at in terms of empties across Marrickville and also some of the other areas. And just to let you know, we do also speak to the chambers, because the chambers are the people there on the street. And if we can work towards solutions, or if they can speak to business property owners, that's helpful for us as well too. So yeah, that's all I've got at the moment. But it is something big on my radar, and it is a big pain. So I share the frustration.
That's right. Thank you, Anna Harvey. There is evidence from the Netherlands and elsewhere that riding bikes are transport rather than driving private cars improves social, and could and also making sure that you participate in our preparing of our bike strategy. That'll be great. Thank you, Anna. JFM says, are any of the presenters willing to take time to travel around the inner west with a wheelchair? Well, I can let you know a couple of things, JFM. Thank you for your question. Our mayor at the moment is in a wheelchair. She's made it abundantly clear about the priorities that we need to do, and so has the current elected council, in respect of what we could do about footpaths and getting around. There's a couple of things. I'll answer this. There's two things. Three things. One is we've just done a pedestrian access mobility plan, identified about $8 million worth of priority works that need to be done in and around to connect our important pedestrian nodes to whether that be a shopping centre, a school, a park, regional transport routes, and to try and improve that. So we've got a whole heap of priority works that plan went to the traffic committee, has to come back to council in the new year and will be prioritised in next year's budget. So there's that. The other one is there's another statutory thing that every council has done. It's a disability inclusion action plan that council is in the process of doing early next year. So that will also help us. That's not just footpaths, that's across everything that we do in terms of improving accessibility. And there was a lot of discussion and debate amongst councillors, the challenge that we've got from a regulatory space. We're trying to encourage people to do outdoor dining with COVID, but we need to make sure that when we do that, that the footpath is still accessible for those to travel along. I might just say to Simon, is there anything you wanted to add in terms of the DIAP?
Well,
we love an acronym in local government, the Disability Inclusion Action
Plan.
Yes,
we do, don't we? Look, Peter, one of the things that's come through really strongly in the healthy ageing area, but also with the Access Committee, is co-design. And so what we intend is to use much more co-design of street, footpath, local community upgrades with people with disability and older people. So yes, there will be more people in wheelchairs helping us design. I think that you know, the street. I think that the figures work something like this: that 20% of folk have got a disability. If a third of people are older, then there are folk with prams and people with you know, other mobility needs. You start to be talking about the majority of the population who really need good level footpaths and other infrastructure. So that's one set of issues. The other thing that the local health districts say to us about this is really interesting. They say, if you do your job properly as council, people will be healthier because they'll have less falls. And they draw a direct line of sight between, you know, the quality of our footpaths and our infrastructure and fewer injuries, fewer fall-related injuries.
Thank you very much for that, Simon, and thanks to JFM for that question. Next question from Neil Tonkin. Nice to see you, Neil. Shout out to for joining us on the line. He's a long-term cycling advocate throughout the inner west. So currently only a small number of children ride to school. What will council do to develop safe cycling networks to allow kids to safely ride to schools? Really good point. For a number of years, councils have been trying to make sure that we have, you know, that we don't rely on the car to get to school and the drop-off. There's cycling and there's walking. It's important, and all I can say is our PAMP will help with that in terms of pedestrian access to schools, and we'll also have a look at that through the development of the bike plan. So thanks very much for that, Neil. Liz Loxley says, what plans are there to activate the Dulwich Hill Centre, including the laneways, artworks in the laneways, flexible use of the car park to allow for small events, outdoor dining, etc.? I might go to Billy for that one.
Yeah, so thanks for that. And this is it's probably an easier question to answer. There's a lot that's planned. So, Liz, just starting with, where do I start? We are looking at a couple of laneways, and I'm trying to get a couple of businesses interested. So that is on the agenda. Last night, a few of us were out at 550 Marrickville Roads, Dully, just looking at the new barriers being dropped in. And you know, some Aboriginal artwork going on there. It's fantastic. So if you're down Marrickville Road, check it out. Trying to get a few more businesses applying. There's another 3 or 4 that are interested, which is really good. So that hopefully will come in the next couple of weeks to get some more outdoor dining and also footpath dining. So for those businesses that aren't necessarily eligible due to traffic regulations and that kind of thing. Last year we helped the economic development team helped set up something called Dully Locals. So it's you know, a mix of social enterprise, but you know, a bit of a representative for the Dulwich Hill main centre there as well too. And we work extensively with a person called Chrissy Flanagan. She's got one of the businesses there. She's also on our Inner West Recovery Task Force. So there's always, you know, a few ideas and plans. We're trying to work with her and the group there to see what else we can do with some local activations. So that is happening at the moment. There is a master plan that's being developed at the moment, And Liz, very important if we can get your details, and anyone else who's from Dulwich Hill or is interested, because I think it'd be really good for you to contribute and provide some feedback to the master plan when it's drafted. So that is being looked at. And the Dulwich Hill master plan is covering the lower end as well as the main part of Dulwich Hill and down through New Canterbury Road as well too. Earlier this year, we picked up, I know it's not the centre, but we picked up up to $1 million as a grant from the state government for the lower end of Dulwich Hill. So, those kind of things can have a bit of a knock-on effect. In terms of car parks as well, again, so happy that you mentioned that. Looking at, there's 3 main car parks. We're thinking about what we can possibly do with part of one of them. So again, just talking to businesses, because we can do, we can shut down parts of car parks, but you don't want to annoy any businesses or members of the public. What sort of activations, who's going to be involved? So we're looking at all of that at the moment, and if all goes well, there could be something planned there as well too. And also as well, we fund local activations, and we used to fund, we still fund the festival as well too. Live performance grants. So any business, most businesses, hospitality in Dulwich Hill are eligible. And I actually walked up and down there the other day saying, please, we're going to do a second round. It's going to open in December. We need you to put in an application because Dulwich Hill hasn't come to the party. So there's small grants supporting local artists, performers and so forth. There's probably more, but yeah, Dulwich Hill, it's very exciting coming up, and you're going to see it just continue to evolve. Please keep in touch with us, Liz.
Thank you very much, Billy. I'm conscious at the time we've done 14 questions. I've been going since 7. It's 20 past, and I've got to finish at 7:30 because we make a promise to do that. So I'm going to, if I don't answer your exact question, call out, probably because we've already covered it. So we'll move on to the next one, another one from Liz. What plans are there, Liz Lockley, what plans are there for place management to assist to assist council in providing a joined-up service to the community across multiple teams and departments? So I am going to throw to Simon for that one.
Thanks, Peter. Look, we already work in a place-based way, particularly in arts and culture. So the work that Amanda's doing on the art in public places work envisages art and culture as a real tool for placemaking and for enlivenment of local places and for the design of local places. And I think that, Peter, to the point that an earlier question made about some development can be soulless, and particularly the base of the buildings, the building plonked into an environment where there's no cultural or respect to the location. We certainly do that type of work pretty well, actually. And I'd point to the sort of role that public art has played in the new Marrickville Metro. It's really, it doesn't feel like a shopping centre at all. It feels like something quite different. We also work in that place in our work. We work extensively with interagencies of organisations, sometimes as many as 100 or 150 in different contexts. An example would be, for instance, we've got a pretty strong new interagency in gambling. So we could certainly do more in that area, but that's some of the work we do there.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Simon. Another one from Leanne Loeb. What is council thinking about dogs in outdoor dining on public transport and more off-leash dog parks that cater for big and small dogs? I can't really comment about public transport. All I can say is in the right environment, dogs are allowed in some outdoor dining. There's a number of pubs I know that you can take dogs to. What are we doing for dog parks? With all of our rec needs studies and recreation and parks plans and management, we're conscious that we need to provide, it's an important recreational activity, walking and looking after dogs. So we do that. We've got 3 animal controllers that are out there that are dealing with the community and helping educate the community on dogs. We know that they're important to people that are socially isolated, a lot of older people. I think that's it's really important. So we are planning that for all of our open space strategies. I encourage you, again, if you register for another plug for the Your Say website, Len, you'll be then across, because everything that we do comes out through that Your Say webpage. So if you want to advocate for dogs, if that's your thing, or whatever it is, if it's bikes, you'll see stuff that goes out for engagement. We want your feedback. So if that's overwhelming that we need to change things and do in that space, we will. Neil's got another one. Thank you. Neil's got another one on bikes, but we've pretty much covered that before. Heather Davies talked about the footpaths in Marrickville have got multiple trip hazards. Will council do an audit? We're actually doing that at the moment. By the end of December, we'll have a new fresh audit. There's this little ride-on bike that council's going around and collecting all the data of all our footpath data. We will have consistent data from one end of the LGA to the other. And out of that, we're going to prioritise and work on our worst condition footpaths and repair them. So good point, Heather. We have that in plan. Shout out to Tamara Winnikoff. Thank you for, she's one of our chairs of our Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. She said at the last meeting, recommended that as well as economic contribution being made by creative industries, the role of arts to social wellbeing, cohesion, sense of identity, and the experience of public space needs to be understood and better integrated into the Inner West Community Strategic Plan. Can this be facilitated as a conversation across relevant areas of council? I'd say yes, and I will throw to Simon.
Thanks, Peter. I think that it's a great point. I was at the committee. It was a unanimous sort of view of the people who were there. And I think that approach is really at the heart of the cultural strategy. I mentioned in my own presentation that nothing creates wellbeing and cohesion like arts and culture does. Actually, it's got a magic, a multiplier well beyond the individual participant. So yes, we'll certainly be looking at that in the action plan as we implement the action plan for that strategy.
That's great, thank you. Another one from Liz Loxley about safe green connections for walking and cycling between the Greenway and village centres. Dulwich Hill, Haverfield, Leichhardt would be a great way to activate business and help with the Inner West. What is being done to investigate the economic and cultural opportunities for the Greenway as a place activation strategy? Now, Billy, can you lean in with that one at all, or is it something we're going to take on notice?
I think we'd have to take it on notice. There's a lot that was done around Greenway. That was done through some of my colleagues. So we can get all that information and pass it back to Liz, if that's okay.
The loss of the light rail, thank Kerry Lorimer, the loss of the light rail plus the closure of the train line during Metro will have a huge impact. What can council contribute? There's been a number of resolutions in relation to the closure of the light rail. We've got a senior transport planner who's liaising with Transport for New South Wales regularly about alternate routes and about how we can get a better outcome for the community. I'd encourage you, we're updating our website. It wouldn't be done yet, but in the next week I'd ask you to have a look about light rail. If there's any issues with that, you can please put that through our website. So thank you, Kerry, for that one. Rob, a number of empty shop fronts in Parramatta Road has not diminished for decades. What can council pull to resuscitate this eyesore? We're doing a master plan for the Parramatta Road corridor at the moment. There's a whole heap of planning that needs to be done along that space. We're hoping through that. It's a tricky one, Parramatta Road, but we're investing. There's a little bit of money that we've invested through the state government. If you look down the bottom of North and Renwick Street, we're trying to do some street improvements there, but it's a broader planning thing that needs to happen there, and there's a master plan that'll be done in that space, and we'll do our best to keep working with businesses. So we've just got to create the best environment for our community, and get the government to help, because Parramatta Road is a state road, so we need a little bit of assistance there. Jordan Daly, love the outdoor dining. Will it be considered in the future about making it permanent. Yes, we'll look at all of these options. And Colin Jones touched on why aren't we doing footpath dining audits to force shops to obey the rules. That's what I touched on before about the exclusion of pedestrians and forcing frail and poorly sighted to have to negotiate the minefield of tables. So we'll be having our regulatory staff to go out and have a look to make sure that we can do both, created outdoor space, also a clear path for our residents to get around. Another one I'm just conscious of, Margarita, one of our councillors on the line. Hi, Margarita, says, yay, go cyclists. Another one about climate change. We will look at that in our CSP. Mel says, wild spaces for mental health. I just looking around, and it's what's been done to improve Liz about the Dulwich Hill Centre as a civic and cultural hub. Council has a significant property footprint in Seaview Street that could offer a lot more than. So we'll look at Dulwich Hill. We'll look at, we've got some older properties in Seaview Street. We've got the library there. We want to. All I'd say with things like that, we will be having a conversation with the new term of council. But thanks for raising it and keep raising it. Anna, thanks for answering our questions, and thanks, Jordan. We did our best. I'm a minute late, so I might thank you, everyone, and sorry if I didn't answer everything. We've tried to do our best. Amanda Buckland's on the line too, one of our managers, and talking about living art. So thank you, Amanda, for joining us as well. And it's a really important program that we're part of as well. So, so thank you. I will go to my last couple of slides. I can't see the screen. Is that just my end? If it is, Annie, you might have to do the last couple of slides because I've just got blank from my end.
Hi, Peter. Yes, thanks. Thanks for throwing to me. I will just follow up and say thank you to all the presenters today. That was a really interesting and useful set of presentations and some great questions. So the final part of this meeting is to say that you can get involved in steering the direction of the next council by having your say on the community strategic plan and the next 4-year delivery programme by completing the online form at yoursay.innerwest.nsw.gov.au or sending us a letter addressed to Inner West Council at the PO Box 14, Petersham 2049. Attention to Sarah White, and we'll put that information in the chat. Next slide, please. We're asking you to give feedback on the strategic plan. We're asking you 4 questions. Do you agree with these long-term strategies for the next 10 to 20 years to achieve the outcomes that Billy and Simon has been talking about this evening? Is there anything missing, or would you like to make any changes? What are your top 3 priorities for council to deliver between 2022 and 2026? And what do you most value about the Inner West? And what makes the Inner West unique? So those are the questions that you'll find online, or you can answer those in letter. Final slide, please. What happens next is that everyone who provides the comments, and the comments also, just to be clear, comments and subjects that people have put through this evening and at last week's forum will all be bundled together and added to the outcomes that we get from this consultation. They'll all be reviewed and used to inform the proposed updates to the community strategic plan. Then they'll be reviewed by the new council in early 2022, along with the existing CSP. A new draft will be written and it will go on public exhibition, which means that you can comment, we'll consult you and you can have your comment for 4 weeks, and that will happen in around May of next year. And then all the feedback will be reviewed and amendments made where possible, and the final plan will be provided to council by June to adopt, and then that will be the plan for up until 2036. Next slide, please. So finally, as Peter's been saying, please do hop online to Your Say Inner West, where you'll be able to watch last week's video. You'll also be able to watch a video of this week's forum in a couple of days' time, and tell your friends and colleagues and family that they can watch it there too. And the engagement will carry on until the 12th of December. So I'm just going to throw back to you now, Peter, to finalise the meeting.
Yeah, thanks. Again, a shout out and a thank you to the presenter. Thank you to Annie for organising today, our wonderful engagement coordinator and her team. Billy Kotsis and Simon Watts for presenting today. I thank you. And thanks for joining us today and the questions. It's really important for us to get a bit of a feeling for what, and it's a really engaged way. These are new forums for us to try and do this online, but I do think one of the advantages in this type of forums, we do get through more questions and get more answers, and staff leave with a good understanding of what those that attended are feeling. And hopefully you have a greater understanding of what we're doing. And this is an ongoing conversation that we're giving you other ways to keep talking to it. So thank you for your time today. I know you've probably got plenty of things on this time of year, and we do appreciate you taking the time out to participate as part of our community strategic plan engagement. So thank you and all the best. Cheers.
Good night.
Recording stopped.